Welcome to the War Room, a weekly roundtable discussion that takes place every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in at 911warroom.com/Zoom.
Welcome everyone to the 9/11 War Room. It is January 30th, 5:01 p.m. Thank you to the psychologists that have joined us. I'm just going to go through some new news real quick. At 5:20, we take a little 1-minute break for a prayer for 9/11 justice, and now we'll move on to other topics. So real quick, let me share my screen here.
And maybe you want to mute everyone just because I'm hearing some background noise, and also
Make you the co-coordinator.
Yes, please.
You are the co-host. All right. And start off with news, just things, anything I find with 9/11 in the title. Broadway actor meets 9/11 rabbi he plays. This actually has nothing to do with 9/11. This rabbi was in London, I believe it says in the article, and he was on his way to New York, and the flight had gotten canceled, but there it is. There was a play about 9/11. It's actually, the show tells the story of airline passengers whose planes were grounded during the 9/11 terrorist attacks. They made a whole play over this. Whatever. Okay, that's that one. Families of 9/11 victims stake claim to $7 billion of Afghan. Oh, I wanted to ask a question before I showed this. Show of hands. How many people here believe Afghan had anything to do with 9/11? Okay, and then I would show the news article. Families of 9/11 victims stake claim to $7 billion of Afghans' frozen funds in the U.S. Really kind of interesting that they're trying to freeze the assets of the government's money. The Taliban wants the money. The victims' family members, 150 victims, want the money. So this is a big fiasco going on right now. There's that news article. The next one was a 9/11 firefighter pays tribute to fallen Baltimore colleagues. I misread it. I thought that these fallen Baltimore colleagues fought in the 9/11 attacks. No, he fought the fires. The firefighter that paid the tribute was involved with the 9/11 rescue operations. He's okay, and he's just honoring these 3 firefighters that had died in a row house, vacant row home. It's just interesting. The news articles will just grab onto 9/11 for whatever way they can to sell the story. So, but it doesn't mean to make light of these 3 gentlemen that lost their lives. Please don't take it that way. Rest in peace to them. And the last news article that I saw for mainstream or corporate media. The CIA tortured him after 9/11, then they lied. Will the truth ever come out? And this was about Abu Zubaydah. 2 quick things I want to read out of this, what I found just striking. Amy Comey Barrett was one of the justices in the courtroom, and she said Barrett wanted to know what the government would do were the contractors to give evidence before a domestic U.S. court about how they had waterboarded Zubaydah at least 83 times, beat him against a wall, hung him by his hands from cell bars, and entombed him naked in a coffin-sized box for 266 hours. You know, she said, the evidence of how he was treated and his torture. And then they just focused on the word torture. And the last thing here that it says, I find this really crazy. Where is it? Right here. This quote, the CIA is now a very different organization from what it was in 2002. The people who were directly involved in the torture program, they're all out, and there's new leadership who understand the impact of all this, which is just crazy. They just, no, that was old news. So crazy, but that is what we have in the way of corporate media 9/11 news.
No, I did want to mention the what David Schlesinger had sent to us, the fact that there were these 9/11 T-shirts that were being sold. They had been autographed by Giuliani.
Yes.
And they were being sold for $911.
Yes.
And David brought it to our attention because he basically said it was borderline criminal that Giuliani was using his name to sell the shirts for that high a price. After we did some digging into it, it turns out that it was actually a fundraiser organized by, I think it was a firefighter of 9/11. And he was trying to set up funds for 9/11 victims' families, where either the firefighter had died, kids were left behind, so they were setting up tuition funds or ways to pay off the mortgage and stuff like that. So that kind of almost made it okay again, because the cause was honorable, and assuming that it is as it was being presented. But yeah, the first impact of that story was like, yeah, that's totally not acceptable that Giuliani is using his name to sell $900 shirts and cash in on, and the shirts just show what they show him, Bloomberg, and Bush, I think, on the t-shirts. Anyways, it's just one of those, again, where, you know, using the 9/11 name, yes, but then again, for a 9/11 cause, which kind of gets lost in the whole message. But yeah, we didn't quite know what to do with that when we saw it.
Thank you for that. The only other news I have for new news that have happened for 9/11, Richard Gage interviewee last week was Massimo Mazzucco. If anyone didn't get a chance to see that interview, do, because it was really good. I really enjoyed it. A lot of good information there. He basically reviewed the 12 parts of the 5-hour movie that he had made, and very insightful. And that is all I had for news. Anyone else have any new news items that they're aware of or want to share? Okay.
Sorry, did anybody watch Richard's interview of Dan Hanley, the pilot? That was, I thought, pretty good as well.
Yes, I did. Yep. Was that last week?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and it was right at the border. Yeah, that also was very good. Thank you for that, Al. So now for the rest of the show, what I'd like to focus on, we've gracefully, Fran and Marty and Dorothy have joined us. We kind of wanted to get into the kind of like the psychology behind, or where we should move with activism and advocacy.
Jane, can you take off the screen share?
Yeah, I just wanted to share two quick clips.
Okay, sorry.
One was, this is well-known clip in the experts, 9/11 experts speak out. By the way, anybody that didn't realize, these three ladies are from this the video that we're all very well familiar with. This one statement, and hopefully you'll hear the audio. If not, this is gonna not work.
Can you make it louder?
Yeah, this is probably not going to work. Then I should have. Let's try it this way.
We can hear it, but it's very, very faint.
That man is my husband, Bob, in our living room.
Oh.
Just FYI.
Okay.
He's also a clinical psychologist, so.
Oh, excellent. Here we go.
Reactions to hearing the contradictory evidence about 9/11.
I don't want to know the truth, or I'd become too negative and psychologically go downhill. I'm not sure I want to know. If this is true, then up would be down and down would be up. My life would never be the same.
That, and then what Marty had shared. This is the 20th anniversary video clip that they had made for us. What she had found the two greatest hurdles for us right now.
We talked about then, and I still believe today, that the two greatest barriers we have to breaking through with 9/11 are corporate media and also people's beliefs. And those are very huge barriers. They still exist today. But I think we still need to work through those.
And there we go. So let me stop my share.
And can I just say, Marty, that Jean says those words, repeats those words all the time to anybody who will hear it. Our two biggest obstacles are corporate media and public opinion.
Yep.
Well, thank you. I'm very honored. Thanks for telling me that. I am really.
Well, it's very on, you know, it's exactly it. I mean, it really summarizes the two big hurdles that we face, and we're here to hear from you guys a little bit. You know, we can tell you maybe in part, you know, some of the things that we see developing as obstacles in the movement itself, and see what you might want to say about that. But anyways, I'll let Jean go ahead.
Really, I'd like to just turn it over. Whoever would like to share thoughts with us on those subjects. Let's see. There was, actually, let me start with this. Sandra is currently trying to upload however many ridiculous, not ridiculous, a ridiculous amount of files of Fran's essays, and I owe you an apology because I have not made it through them, and some of the answers that we want from this are probably in those essays. So Fran, I guess if you could start us off with your thoughts on how we as street activists and people trying to reach out to the public, I'm not even sure how to phrase this question, Sandra, if you could help me.
Well, the thing is, because Fran, you had said, and I think that was also Benny Will's stand when he was interviewed by Richard, that the best approach is kind of to, you know, create a connection with someone and befriend them, so to speak. And, you know, when you have a certain level of, you know, where you're in that groove, to kind of, then they're more open to receiving what you have to say and to address it in that way. Which is great when you have the chance to do that, but it's not always easy to do that in street activism, because people walk by really fast. Sometimes you only have 10, 20, 30 seconds. There's no possibility to really create a connection. When we were at the at Ground Zero for the 20th anniversary last September, the tactic that I used when people stopped, especially if they were younger, was to ask them, so how old were you when it happened? And that made it personal to them, and it opened up the door where they could just tell me their age and, you know, walk away, or actually take it from there and run with it. And many of them opened up, like, yeah, I was 7 years old and we were in class and the teachers called us out, and, you know, and it's been sitting with me ever since, and I thought I was going crazy, and, you know, so then a whole thing developed. But are there any tactics that can really be well used when you only have that tiny little window to address something with someone who may be resistant?
And you are muted.
Yeah.
Asked to unmute. Asked to unmute. And please feel free, Dorothy, Marty, Fran, speak up.
Well, I'll see what comes out of my mouth.
All right.
Sandra, that's so well put. Yeah, you don't have really much time to establish much of a connection, but what a great job you did by just doing that. You know, how old were you when 9/11 happened, and where were you? And that's established the connection right there. You're basically getting them to talk about themselves. And then from there, you can maybe ask your question, you know, oh no, I never heard of World Trade Center 7. You haven't, you know, well, there was a third building, and then you go on, you know.
Right.
So what a great technique that was. I'll have to remember that. And so yeah, and not all the time, even when you have time to make a connection, sometimes it just doesn't feel appropriate to me to bring up the subject. I have to say, and different people have different personalities. I remember, one thing I guess I'll just say, when I'm on a walk in the neighborhood with David, David's a very different personality than I am, and he's very authoritative. You know, when he speaks with authority, and for good reason. So then we might have several conversations on a walk around our neighborhood, and he'll kind of scope out the situation with the person, and then he'll just say, well, he gives them his maybe Math Without Borders card, and then he'll bring out his, and then here's my other card.
By the way,
My
for
other
people
card.
that don't realize, she's talking about David Chandler.
Yeah,
Yes.
David Chandler, right,
Yeah.
who's my partner. And then he's got his other card with 911speakout.org. And this is what I do. You know, I'm the person who measured it and saw that World Trade Center 7 came down at free fall. And did you know that there was a third building? And then people are mesmerized because he's there and he speaks with such authority. You know, I'm always, it's always fun for me to go for a walk and hear David speak, because he has that ability to speak very authoritatively. I'm very different. I mean, who's going to listen to me? You know, as a person with a psychology background. So, so I may just get into a long conversation about them, and then I kind of scope them out and see, well, they asked what I did. Well, here's the shocking news about what I do, and then I'll tell them about 9/11. You know, and so my approach is very different.
Right.
I was thinking about my former partner, Jim, too. We were at the World Trade Center, not the World, WTO, in the Battle of Seattle, about the World Trade Organization in 1999 in Seattle, the Battle of Seattle. So we were there, and we were on a bus traveling from one place to another, and it was a Black inner city man who came up to us and says, "What's going on? Why all these signs? What are you guys doing?" And my partner Jim has a totally different personality than I do, and a totally different way of approaching it. He probably was the best person to talk to this inner city Black guy. And he just got right in his face and started yelling at him about what was going on. And guess what? The guy got it. You know?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I say, I never could have done that, you know?
Right.
So we all have our different approaches, and
Right.
maybe he made good connection with him by doing that. So anyway,
what we might
that's-
hear from this is that I guess a psychology thing is that people have their filters, the filters that they speak with, and then the filters that people hear things. So while some people may have their own ways and methods of sharing information, other people, it also depends on how the people were going to receive that information. So there's quite an array here. We have methods and tactics. Since I paused real quick, it's coming up on 5:20. Every day at 5:20, I just say a little prayer for those that aren't religious. Just chill for a minute. It's just a quick prayer. I just want to pray for 9/11 justice. So just bear with me for a second. Lord, we just lift up this time and these people and these folks to you, Lord. We just thank you that so many advocates are still passionate about this after all these years. Just ask for a prayer of protection around them, the Lawyers Committee, Richard Gage, and everyone that continues to fight for this. We just ask that that our truths would be heard, and that you would help with us in getting this word out to be received. In your name I pray. Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
All right. Marty or Dorothy, do you have anything to say to add on to that? Or feel?
Yeah, I have some thoughts about it, and thank you for that prayer, Jean.
Yeah.
I'm not the praying type, but I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm not one for public prayer, and it's not really but at that time happens to come on my show. So
So so some of my thoughts are that so Fran and Dorothy and I are all part of Colorado 9/11 Truth, as you probably know, and we're part of the core leadership team. There are about 10 of us. We plan things, and a big focus of Colorado 9/11 Truth as part of our mission has been education and outreach over the years. So of course, and so we would be out at these huge, fairs in Denver and local, farmers markets and different things like that. So obviously, and what I wanted to bring up, obviously COVID changed everything for everybody. And so that shut us down as far as this kind of outreach. And, Cassandra, you're talking about street activism. And that really shifted for us. So for the past 2 years, so we shifted to, as if any of you've been on our Zoom calls, to a Zoom, interviewing Cynthia McKinney, Richard Gage, and so forth. And, every so often we'll do that. Now that's very different, of course, in street activism, because we are reaching, who comes to these kinds of calls are people who are already activists or already in the 9/11 Truth movement. So it's very different. So, so that did kind of switch our activity. I also will tell you that personally, my activism is very much around COVID right now and the official narrative around that. I think the parallels are very obvious probably to all of us around and not everyone may be on board with this way, what I'm thinking. I understand that, but the parallels are so, I feel that many of us in the 9/11 Truth movement actually also are involved in COVID activism because of what we already experienced. We've had 2 decades of experiencing government propaganda, deceptive media, cover-ups, manipulated data, and so forth. So that I feel is a reason that we have felt some kinship. Again, not everyone has a different opinion, and but so what I found is something interesting in talking to people then about 9/11. One is, shockingly, I was invited to speak for the 20th anniversary at just a small local senior center. And one of they have these like current affairs discussions every week. And one of the persons who runs that is totally into 9/11 Truth. And so so that was shocking. Like, it was in person and I got to do a little presentation. We had a really great talk with the group there who was, they came to the discussion, so they were somewhat open to the information. So that's obviously, as we know, someone has to be at least a little open to hearing it. But anyway, what I wanted to say about talking to people these days is that COVID, because of these parallels, I feel it's presented an interesting opportunity. So Fran and I I helped start a group called Boulder Stands Up, and then Fran and I are on this legislative committee, kind of tracking legislation in Colorado and around vaccines and mandates and things COVID related. So we're working with all these people, doctors. It's a new group of people, as you know, when you kind of make new friends, right? So every one of these people doesn't know about 9/11 Truth. They just have really not thought about it. But the question comes up, well, how did you know about, or how did you get into this side of COVID, or how come you're questioning? And the answer, and Fran's always very open about it, which I love, and I feel is a model for me. But it's like, well, because we're part of the 9/11 Truth movement. And they're like, what? And it's just this has opened this door because of the parallels that we're not getting. People are just kind of listening, like we're not really getting these pushbacks on 9/11 because they already see these, oh yeah, the government's, again, if you believe this as I do, there's the cover-ups and the manipulated and so on and on. So they're already there on so many of those things. that we just talk very matter-of-factly about 9/11 and what happened and these parallels. And if they're interested, we can send information. And I even had a neighbor who called me, who realized, oh, it's another neighbor. Oh my gosh, we feel the same about COVID. I can't believe. And the other day she called me and said, you know, I always kind of blew you off, or she didn't quite use that term, around 9/11. She goes, I would never be open to that. And now I am. And it was quite shocking. So I guess it's kind of a different way. I think there is this opportunity perhaps with at least that if people are questioning the COVID narrative, that is, I feel, an opportunity for us to talk about 9/11 truth.
So that is thank you for that. That is the method that 9/11 TAP, they've moved into being more of an umbrella organization. They want to tackle all these different topics and bridge over to 9/11. And some people in the 9/11 Truth Movement do not agree with that. Others do, but there is, I got to say, to a certain segment of society, yes, that does help people connect things, and they see the parallels, and that helps an entrance to get your foot in the door. Now we have a couple questions real quick. Susan, you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I'm just a little introduction. I'm Sue Serpa from Worcester, Massachusetts, and I've been part of the resistance before I became a 9/11 truther, going back to resisting impeaching Bush and anti-war. And you know, despite my gray head, I never had been involved before Bush. I never was part of the hippie resistance movement or anything. So, but I've been steady and going strong, a late bloomer. And as part of my resistance, of course, you know, I've gotten involved since COVID with local Freedom Cell meetings. And I don't bring up 9/11, but I'm finding out that a lot of people in conversation, once it does come up, they never looked at 9/11 before, independent of everything I've been talking about. And because of COVID, they're looking at 9/11 and they're going, holy crap, this has been going on a long time. They're looking at the deep state for the first time, younger generation. So but it's a double-edged sword, because even though they've fully waken up to the lies around 9/11, they're distracted. They're in urgent mode about the current liberties being disrupted. So, you know, of course, if people had waken up to 9/11 much earlier, we wouldn't be in this situation today. That's the sad fact. But we can't, even though a lot of people are waking up to 9/11, they're not working on that because they've got such urgent issues they're working on.
It's almost like it became less relevant in light of everything that's going on. And even if it's easier to open the door now, partially because there's been 20 years to, you know, it's easier to acknowledge something that happened in the past that's something that's happening right now if you're resistant.
Well, they're even drawing the connection that this happened because of 9/11. They got away with it because of 9/11. Right. But they're in urgent mode.
That's it.
That's the thing. They can't really step away from their immediate urgency to work on 9/11. So that's the double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. Al?
Yeah, I just want to direct this to Fran and the other lady that spoke. I'm wondering how much effort they're putting into the lawyers committee. I personally stick to 9/11. I haven't gone down the COVID road. And I think this is the most exciting time since I've been involved, since 2006, for the 9/11 movement. And what Mick Harrison and the Lawyers Committee are doing is, I mean, this is like the ultimate, where the metal to the whatever pedal or whatever you want to say that.
Pedal to the metal.
Pedal to the metal.
What Al's referencing real quick, 3 major updates. One, we have the oral arguments were presented January 21st in the Southern District of New York. We're waiting to hear back from them. Mick Harrison did an excellent job there presenting the argument. 2, December 21st, 2021, David Cool's FOIA request. The lawsuit was passed, and now he has the right to discovery with NIST and FEMA. And 3, actually not so much new movement there, but the AE's lawsuit against NIST is progressing. So yeah, it's still going on. And I'm sorry to interrupt there. I just want to give everyone context.
That's okay. Don't forget the Campbell lawsuit in
Yeah.
England. But
And
so
Alfred, there's Dorothy also.
Yes.
You were addressing Fran and Marty, but Dorothy is also
Oh.
part of the group of psychologists that is,
okay.
she just hasn't spoken yet.
So, oh, shoot. Okay. So, yeah, I just wanted to throw that in as, I've become re-energized over 9/11. I think a lot of people kind of felt like it was going nowhere, and they wanted something more interesting to talk about after 15 years of meetings for our group, the Boston 9/11 group. So we've lost a lot of people to the COVID story, and it's a shame, because I think we're at the highest point we've ever been, and why that doesn't appeal, I guess, is my own question. But anyway, that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
If I may, also, Al comes from the camp that he's a 9/11 purist. He doesn't really care to mix the two stories, and that's perfectly fine too. So,
So what's your question, Al? Is your question like, why is this legal turn of events not more, why does it not have more of an impact on, is that what you're asking?
Well, I wasn't asking, I was sort of making the observation that we'd lost a lot of interest, and that the fact that we had some big breakthroughs, that people don't seem to acknowledge in the 9/11 movement as particularly, I mean, they're much more interested in COVID than they are 9/11. So I'm just complaining.
Well, thank you for that, Al. Does anyone want to respond to? Or I have 3 other hands here. I'm trying to get through them real quick. Kale, what do you? Oh, go ahead, Marty.
I was going to ask Dorothy, what are you thinking about all this so far?
What are you saying, meaning specifically, Marty?
Well, just like Al's question around, this kind of shift to COVID and people not being as interested in 9/11 truth, or just kind of where you are with some of this, where we've been talking about, our group and other groups, and, just curious as to where you are with some of this discussion so far.
Okay, thank you. So I am not like Al. I am not a purist at all. I like to put things in historical context, and also my name is Dorothy, and so I'm of course very connected to the movie The Wizard of Oz. And COVID, first 9/11 and then COVID, really allowed us to pull the curtain back and see the man behind the curtain we weren't supposed to be paying any attention to. So I think they're a beautiful partnership. What an opportunity. And it allows us, you pair those two, and then you can bring everything else in too, and really create, you can just show people this unbroken chain of events going back, well, at least to the Mexican War, the Mexican-American War. I guess that's where I am. I do have I made a little handout
Oh, nice.
before the meeting today, which I'm happy to email out. And I'm going to add what other people have said, because I'm just hearing so many great things. And I'm afraid that I was not thinking about what do you do with street activism when you have 5 seconds to reach somebody. That is not my strength, and I'm not going to pretend it is.
Thank you.
I have the challenge of living in a town in the mountains of Western Colorado with fewer than 1,500 people.
Mm.
I live in this little closed, contained community. I'm a psychotherapist and also a real estate agent. I have to protect my means of making a living. So I have to be pretty careful about all this, about what I say and to whom I say it.
Good point.
However, I am reaching that point where I'm financially independent enough where I can just say, screw it, and do whatever I want. And so I'm hoping that happens at some point this year where I can really not be afraid of what people think anymore. This house that you see behind me, this was a Baptist church. Paonia has more churches, or had more churches per capita than any town in the country. At one point, we had one church for every 20 people, and I got one of them. And so it's a great, they're just like this huge room that they used to hold Baptist services in. I'm going to start holding ideas salons as soon as the weather permits, because I'm going to be specifically inviting people from different demographics, different political parties, and so on, to come bring all their best information about whatever the topic of the day is. And of course, there's going to be COVID. Of course, there's going to be 9/11. I have a big blank wall that I can show movies on. It's kind of like slow foods. I'm not into fast activism. I'm into slow activism where I really can talk to people, get to know them, listen and listen and listen and listen to them. I'm hoping to have booths in my town park. We have all kinds of festivals in Paonia, where this is one of the coolest little small towns in the country, because we have vineyards and stuff. So what else? Oh, humor. That is one thing that I think we really need to be increasing. There's this great website called Off Guardian, and they have all these COVID skeptic memes on it. You just have to kind of Google, go to Off Guardian and look for their COVID skeptic memes. That's one thing I'm going to start doing, kind of a guerrilla operation on all our town bulletin boards with these memes. But there's no reason why 9/11. I'm sure there are 9/11 skeptic memes out there too that somebody has compiled. That we
and not just that. That subject has come up before. And we did address the fact that, using comedy, especially since the official narrative of 9/11 is so ridiculous, is actually the perfect thing to do comedy with. And there is a Dutch comedian who's done a whole tour of the Netherlands with 50+ dates, all sold out, solely based on 9/11. And his name is George Van Hout. And so that it does work. And we did have in this group at one point a younger person called Robbie Alloy, who is a comedian. And he also underlined that it would be it's the perfect setup to use to break that barrier, because if you can get people to laugh at a story that's obviously ridiculous, then you're halfway there, right? So our challenges were kind of also in how to reach the younger generation, because all of us are of a certain age. There's nobody who's 20 in this group, I don't think. So yeah, we have to kind of involve the younger people now, and make it relevant to them. And that's been one of the questions, not right now, because I want the other people to be able to ask the questions, but how do you specifically break through to the younger generation, and revive that, because they don't have that blockage the way that a lot of people who lived it have it, because they're resistant, because it happened in their own backyard, right? The younger generation doesn't have that. So anyways, about the humor and the comedy thing, yes, absolutely, that's
real
big.
quick.
Well, and Sandra, something you just said made me think too, the difference between the younger generation and our generation is they don't have the cognitive dissonance that we
That's
have
what I
in our
meant, yeah. That's what I meant. They don't have the
And-
blockage.
And I really, coming from the psychological point of view, I really recommend that people study the phenomenon of cognitive dissonance. James Corbett has a video, something about how to tolerate cognitive dissonance on his website. And, they took a clip from what Fran and Marty and I did. But learning about that, and also learning about psychology of narcissism and narcissistic relationships, because concepts like gaslighting, where you convince somebody that what they think about reality is not true, and you force another picture onto them, you give them a fake reality and basically force them into it. That's a lot what we're seeing both with COVID and with 9/11, where the pressure to believe something that defies your own senses is so overwhelming that people could relate.
Interesting. Real quick, I wanted to go back to your idea of the rooms. That is a great method for, like, I've coined this term, passive activism. It's activism, but in a passive sense that it's kind of like putting a table up on a sidewalk. People are coming to you, and having the rooms, people are coming to the event. And that's where you can garner the friendships and then break through to people. It kind of removes that ability, the ability for them to become defensive, because they're coming to your table, they're coming to your room or your event, so their guard is already down. Kale, you got something for us?
Yeah, hi. I'm with 9/11 Truth Hawaii, for those who don't know. Fran, Susan, Dorothy, and I believe Marty.
Yep.
We are completely with you on riding this COVID wave. We found that more people are open to discuss, even approach, because I usually wear 9/11 Truth Hawaii shirts that we make, and they come right up to us. But as an example, we attended they called it a death march for the people that are passing away or deathly sick or ill from the side effects from these beep chemical injections. So it's a Christian group out here called Aloha Freedom Coalition. We joined them in this death march, and we all wore black, but I have 9/11 Truth Hawaii in black. So when we attend these other demonstrations, and this is Kiai, this is Protector in Hawaiian, which the Hawaiians are trying to expose their truth for their illegal annexation from the United States. That's a whole different subject. But what we do is we work with these groups because they're open, and what's happening with COVID, people will come right up to you and just start talking to you about it. They want to talk about it, and they want to revive 9/11 because there's so many key elements with 9/11 on what's going on now with COVID. And it's hard to deny that, or hard not to at least take advantage of that as it's happening in this moment. A lot of young people are losing their freedoms and rights as we speak, especially our children are being targeted and forced via sanctions if they don't comply. We're in a time of war. So to not go with this or even try is, I'll bite my tongue. But to keep purists with it, I completely understand that. But just to tell you the truth, the revival of 9/11 and the more momentum we're picking up with 9/11 is due to the infringements of our constitutional rights with COVID. People are tired of it. Even our young people are tired of it.
I guess in that
All
aspect,
over the world.
one
Yeah.
question though is, we had the JFK. This is outside of some of our, well, maybe just me. I was born in '72. JFK happened, and we didn't hear people saying, well, I just want to deal with JFK activism, and 9/11 now has come and kind of to squash that. Really, I don't know why JFK and RFK, MLK assassinations haven't been given more attention than they have.
Right.
But
I mean, I'm so excited right now, especially with something that you're offering as well, Gene. Man, we're able to like talk again and be open. And Sandra, yeah, we don't get pushed around. We don't get pushed back. You know, we can be open and free, whether we're a purist or not. Honestly, I think what we're finding is who's really in this fight via COVID, by letting it divide us, and who's really, you know, really taking the reins of this wave. We need to ride it. But anyway, I'm just so thankful for all you guys, and it's awesome to hear other 9/11 activists getting involved with what's happening today. And this is what it's all about right here. Our next generation, guys.
Right on. Thank you, Kale.
All right, love you guys.
Next one I have is Ken Henry, and for anybody that's out in some remote area, check out Ken Henry. There's a remote area.
Oh,
Ken, you're muted.
There are 100 pictures of Ken standing somewhere in nature, in the summer, in the winter.
Amazing photos.
And he brings this banner with him wherever he goes and takes a picture wherever he is and posts them regularly. So that's very, very inspirational.
Yep.
I post them every time I see them. I always wondered who you were.
All right. I'm just some guy. Right on. Hey, yeah. Actually, I guess where I wanted to come on was kind of, you know, jumping on Kay's comment and on Dorothy's, and actually it kind of touches on a lot of other things. I know, Alfred, you mentioned this too. For those of us that are kind of dealing with the whole COVID thing right now, in one form or another, or in many forms, actually, for a lot of us, one of the ways that I found that's been useful to approach this has been the house burning analogy. So you're in a house, right? It's on fire. You're busy trying to pull it out, and the house that's on fire that we're all in right now is COVID. It's the official narrative behind COVID and all the stuff that's being pushed. You can be at different levels of under, where you sit is totally up to you on that. But there's a lot of stuff going on there, and it is like immediate. It's happening right now, and so everybody's struggling to deal with that right now. 9/11 is the house next door that already burned down. Okay, the smoldering wreckage of that has been there for a long time, but it's the same arsonist, right? It's the same person running through the neighborhood burning houses down. So I think a lot of the, I'm totally with Chief in that a lot of the conversations that I'm having or that I'm seeing happen are, oh, hey, yeah, all this stuff's going on, and it's unconstitutional, and blah, 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 and it's all kinds of laws are being broken, and the Nuremberg, all that stuff. And then 9/11 comes up, and it's like, well, yeah, we get that, right? We get that, but this is, we got to deal with this right now. So I found that useful, just kind of, like, hey, it's great to bring it up as a talking point, but don't be surprised when you bring it up. Or at least I've been kind of surprised a little bit that, okay, yeah, hey, I'll bring it up, and oh yeah, we got that, or oh yeah, I've heard about that, it looked Building 7, yeah, but what about this mandate thing that's kind of, so it's I think there's way more people aware of this now, of 9/11 than maybe, definitely more than any media is ever going to let on. You're never going to see this in the media. So if your barometer is the media, you need to change your instrument. Find something else that works as a barometer, because that's just not, the media is not reality anymore, and it's becoming so divorced from reality, so separated from reality, that normies are popping out of it left and right. Like, oh my God, what's going on? I've had my boosters, now they want me to go get another one. After that last booster, I was sick for a week, whatever, right? So that kind of stuff. The media is not, it's going to be the last domino to go. The good news is if you look at like viewership over a lot of these outlets, they're plummeting. The viewership is absolutely cratering. But the, that's the, the, what do you call it? the crux stone, if you will. It's just like the crux of everything. Once the media goes, there's no more, you know, the ability to hit people with propaganda. That's it. And so don't know how that goes. I really like Dorothy's idea of the speakeasy, maybe without alcohol, but you know, that whole concept really kind of resonates. And I really like humor as a strategy. Humor goes right through everything. If you get somebody to laugh, 9 times out of 10, whatever the armor is that's up, once you get them laughing at you is fine. But that has been the way that I found. But the great thing about COVID, it's waking everybody up. I mean, it's literally, you can just stand back and let it go and watch it. And it's like, you know, my job, if you will, of trying to get people along has gotten easier, way easier because of COVID. And I really like the idea that, you know, people are walking up and, you know, they're ready to have that conversation about the house that's already burnt down and that's been smoldering for a while. But, you know, grab the fire extinguishers because we got to deal with the problems today. That's it.
Thank you. I guess my question would be, why is COVID waking people up to 9/11, but 9/11 didn't wake people up to JFK and RFK? Like, why is it just the time difference, or?
I'd say acceleration. Things are speeding up. If you look at what's happening with the energy crisis worldwide, all that type of stuff, you know, resources, there's a whole other line of discussion there. I'm not gonna, what do you call it? Yeah, but what's happening is the intervals between these events is speeding up, just like the interval between them running printing. You know, now we've got to do 2 trillion this year, right? The interval between the financial crises, if you will, they were pretty spaced out before. Now it seems like we're having one every 10 years or 5 years, and so yeah, I think it's just we're getting to hockey sticks on a lot of different things, financially, energy wise, definitely economy wise. It's all related, and because everything's happening and it's happening very quickly, and the crew that's trying to keep control of the narrative are being pressured to do whatever they need to do or whatever they feel they need to do in a quick manner. It's just things are coming faster, and so you can boil a frog slow, but if you boil them fast, they'll jump out. And what's happening is the water temperature is being turned up very quickly now because it has to be.
But it's
All
not
right,
just
that's it.
that. I mean, the 2 events, I mean, are so different because 9/11 happened on one day in one very specific place, whereas COVID has been going on for 2 years. It's worldwide. It has a direct impact on almost everyone's life, versus 9/11 really, I mean, even though it did have an impact on everyone, but it wasn't necessarily in the aftermath.
Personal.
People don't realize that the rights have been taken away and that things have been rewritten and whatever, but life went on for them after, except for the constant threats of terrorism and whatnot.
The beauty of that, Sandra, is COVID is burning people out.
Yes,
COVID's
it
burning
is.
people out.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've got Chuck, Paul, and Kale with their hands up, but I want to give Dorothy, Fran, or Marty a chance to respond.
I can respond to a little bit of that quickly. I would say some of the things that were brought up. We had 3 things that I think were coup d'etats, and that's JFK, RFK, MLK, Martin, you know, all these assassinations that happened in the 60s. And there wasn't much progress made on those. We didn't have the internet in those days either.
That's
you
true.
know. Then there was 9/11. That was another coup d'etat, you know. It was shocking. I think as far as humor goes, it was much more difficult to be humorous around 9/11 than it was around COVID. And I agree with Sandra, COVID's affect everyone very personally. There is, let me see, what else did I put down here? Yeah, I think maybe that's enough for now, just to make some comments as to what people have said.
Thank you.
I wanted to respond to what Alfred said about losing people from the Boston group. Did I get that right?
Yep, you did.
Okay. And I can't comment on what goes on in your group. I only comment what goes on in our Colorado group that Fran has helmed forever and ever and ever. And it is just a delight to be part of that group. We just have fun when we get together. You know, we sit around and eat and talk and get really intensely into conversations about all kinds of things, not 9/11, not just 9/11. And there's such strong bonds in that group. We've just been friends for so long that it's an attractive group to be in because it's so much fun. I learned so much from everybody in the group. And so I guess in terms of attracting people to do 9/11 activism, we have to deal with whatever kind of urgency is going on in our own mindset. We have to deal with that so that we can come at this from a fun, relaxed, this is the most fun thing you could be doing kind of place.
Nice. Thank you.
May I interject a little bit to that point? You're saying it was you have meetings in your house, Dorothy, or in a space. It's face to face. Our meetings since COVID for Boston have been on Zoom. And that doesn't take the place of the interpersonal relationship.
You're right, and we've mixed it up with the Denver group or with the Colorado group. We've done Zoom, but we've also gotten together outside, for example, at Fran's house, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, the interperson. Yeah, thank you. Chuck, you've been there for a while.
Why don't we go to Paul? He had his hand up first.
I get them in order, but if you would like to, sure.
I can go.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll just go. So, so let me just put my thing up here. So, so I'm active with out here in Oregon, and I'm active with I'm working with Bill Jacoby at TAP, and I'm trying to work on the idea of a unifying narrative. I've composed a document titled Liberation Coalition Manifesto, and I'm active in the Green Party. I'm active with a Green Liberation Society group, a small group of anti-COVID, federal COVID response truthers. Critics probably were basically anarchist types. I'm an anarchist who believes in good government. So, so I'm working on kind of multiple fronts on this, and then the prospect of getting anybody to stop and listen and talk is always a huge event. I am inspired by Fran's essay on what the problem of people going silent, and I like the idea that we explicitly call out state crimes against democracy, and that's the thread that connects JFK in the 60s, assassinations, and 9/11 and COVID today, is we are living through another state crime against democracy. So Bill has in the TAP that would not just be 9/11 TAP, but TAP that would be open to all kinds of discourse and would hopefully function as some kind of clearing for people on multiple levels and interests to engage. But I'm freshly read Michel Chossudovsky's article that he published on the Global Research site, and he issued a call to action. And I'm reading in other essays, people are saying this is kind of the time for a big call to action. And so, so I'm interested in that. I'm interested in that, you know, as the our comrade from Hawaii pointed out, this is not partisan. This is about a whole national movement that, you know, will have to involve tactical strikes, boycotts, general strike. And I'm an advocate for saying, to not just say it's one thing. It's been a multi-generational event that has subjected American people to a series of traumas that's induced this state of mass delusional psychosis that we're witnessing and are encountering. So, so I'm working with Bill on the TAP website, and the prospect that the TAP website could be fleshed out and host, the 9/11 War Room and have a nice layout and create synergy for these different groups, Christian on the right, anarchist types on the left, and everyone in between. I mean, this is, and we're finding unity around our common skepticism and our lack of, our willing to not accept the official narrative and to know the official narrative is a false narrative. So I'm done. I just wanted to share that, and nice to meet everyone. And I need to talk to Gene separately and talk to you about some technical stuff at some point. And I don't know how to reach you. Chuck.
Phone number 724-826-1001. You can call or text me.
Okay.
And
Chuck, you could also join 911public.org.
thank you very much, Sean. Yeah, there's a website we have, 911public.org. It's a public directory for 9/11 truth advocates that are wanting to put their information out there. All my information's there as well. Thank you, Sean. for that.
We're hiring Sean as our public relations manager and PR.
Where is that? What's that? Is that? Can you post it in the chat? Just and I'll hyperlink and I'll open it up
Sure.
and then have it.
Yep.
That'd be great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay.
Anyone want to reply to anything Chuck said there? I do want to say there was a great quote by St. Augustine. It said, in the essentials, unity, and the non-essentials, liberty, and in everything else, love. Where we all agree 9/11, in my opinion, 9/11 is the essential. But we allow everyone the liberty to be able to pursue the truths of connecting it to 9/11 however they want, the liberty to do that. And
can I just say to Alfred, I don't think 9/11 is losing to COVID. I think it's the 9/11 elements that have not directly engaged and have gone into COVID is a natural evolution of concern. When you witness something and when you witness an emergency, you've got to go to the emergency. So I think the task of 9/11, I guess is to connect and make the gestalt clear of this generational SCAD. So I wouldn't look at it negatively, except, open people up to share about their COVID concerns. That's one way to think about it. Okay, Chuck out.
thank you, Chuck. Al, you want to say anything or go on?
Well, I still go back to the fact that we're at the peak of our game in 9/11, and anybody that I would assume people on this call came here because of 9/11, and that we need to support in every way we can the Lawyers Committee and anything to do with 9/11. And I'm getting up in age, and I won't tell you how old I am, but I don't have the energy to go off on 3 or 4 different other subjects, and I'm stuck with this whether I like it or not, and I'll see it through. But I still say that 9/11, the 9/11 truth movement has got everything it could possibly want, and I'm hopeful that we're going to prevail. And whatever I have is committed to Mick Harrison and the Lawyers Committee right now. And I'm not thinking about anything else at this point. I acknowledge historically there have been false flags. You're going back all the way to the Roman Empire, and you can bring up examples of things, coups that have taken place. And I go back to the anti-war days in Vietnam and what went on in those days, and that was very real to me. So it's not like I'm unaware of all these other things going on. It's just that I want to keep forcing 9/11 onto the public and have them understand that we're going full tilt here. And I don't know what else I can tell you, but that's where I'm coming from.
I dig it, and I guess to add for what Al said there, and now I just lost my train of thought like that. I know this conversation has kind of gone into how we see the parallels of COVID and 9/11, when we kind of wanted to do focus on specifically how we could go with 9/11 activism and advocacy, the psychology behind that.
Okay, so let's focus on that from this point onwards.
Yeah, if that'd be cool. Paul and then Kale. Oh,
yeah,
wait.
I want to talk about real work going on, some real results. So basically, think of the message that we're trying to send. There's so many different messages in the 9/11 truth movement. And I've been tracking things on Twitter. Twitter is open to the public, so you can actually track the conversation going on, much unlike Facebook, where you actually can't see like what the conversation is happening, right? You can't look at how the message is spreading to people outside of the truth movement. So I've been analyzing the message and seeing the hashtags and what people are tweeting and retweeting and looking at the comments, and we don't have a lot of representation on Twitter for 9/11 truth. There's some diehard people, and it's great. I'm seeing all of it, really. I've seen it all, literally, all the 9/11 truth activity on Twitter so far, and I won't get into the future. I won't get into anything other than the message needs to spread to all Americans. It can't get divided. We can't have a message that's who's your message going for? You got to do that kind of analysis. And also, we have the project on the University of Washington campus to actually recruit people into activism from the younger generation. And for the psychologists on this call, yeah, we want them to actually set up studies. We want to understand the message. And my thesis, just to leave everybody with it, you can contact me. All my public information is public or whatever. We just want to see the message go from forever. And we're working on pediatric cancer. And we want to see that message go everywhere. Why can't we treat it like a Fortune 500 company treats their messages? You don't want to leave your messages and just have them land with 20% of the population. We're never going to win that way. We need to get to all the population. And also, finally, the other project that we are working actively on, I won't mention his name, but the FOIA request for WTC7. And I'm heavily focused on that message. We want to create a video. I'm actually working on a script, and I have a video production company that's going to be coaching me through the way. I'm going to put together a 5-minute video. It's in progress. We want to see that message go to all Americans. I don't want to have that message overloaded with other stuff. I want to see that message resonate with Americans just on that message alone, that people should take that information seriously and do something about it. And I don't want to see this overloading, and we can track it and we can show people if it's actually helpful for you. But in studies, in usability studies, I will show this year that what people are doing, I won't get to the COVID thing, but I will show, I'm with Alfred 100%. And I think what Alfred is saying is going to help us win. And I will show mathematically, down to doing user studies on thousands of people, that what I'm saying is true. And I don't have the funding. I don't need it. I'm going all force, and we are in motion right now. So,
on Paul.
Well, that's it for now.
Thank you, man. You got energy, and Minot sounds French, but man, you seem Italian. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a French mutt. I'm just a French mutt.
Fran, go ahead real quick, and we'll go to Kale.
Yeah, hey, I just haven't figured out how to put these hands up digitally. So, yeah, I just wanted to say to Al, there's no way I'm giving up on 9/11, and I'm supporting the lawyers committee 100%, more than 100%, and will continue to do so, as well as Richard Gage and anyone who's doing anything constructive with 9/11. It's just that I can't avoid the COVID thing. It's right in my face. So.
Thank you. Kale.
Yeah, you were asking about JFK and RFK, and I've thought about that too, because I refer back to JFK when he's taking on the bankers and trying to get our monetary back on track. But back then, remember, they didn't have the technology we have today. So it's so accessible for people not to go look something up. It's almost like, it's now down to the person's choice, where before they didn't really have a choice. They would have to wait for a book to come out or some kind of article, or some kind of video that might have some truth in it. But now there's so much information out there, it's not even funny.
Okay.
So, but with 9/11, there's and over 20 years, there's so much information on false flags and how they work and the formulas they use and the tactics, from psychology to frequencies to how they pull off a false flag. You know, Operation Northwoods is a great example that involves JFK. But what I'm getting to is 9/11 has a plethora of information to learn about false flags, and that's why the parallels of COVID are running together with it. And that's so vital for our young people today. And it's all coming together. It's an awesome time. And I agree with Al and Fran. You know, I'm on both sides, and we try to stay straight to 9/11. That's why we're here with you guys. But we can't ignore it as well during this time. And the momentum that's building with the lawyers and our fight to get it reinvestigated is being pushed forward because the world is waking up because of what's happening now.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be able to deny it. And with 9/11 affecting one day, I'm sorry, I don't really agree with that. I think it affected the world for years after. They did the terrorist attack thing. Today is at red. Now we're at orange. Now we're at, you know, that went like for a couple of years after, and we're like hiding in our house. It's the same thing. They just used it, turning us into domestic terrorists. Now everybody's afraid of each other. Who's a little cell network over here, and then our borders are closing with Canada. And I mean, it's so parallel. It's not even funny. Now they, like you're saying, it's not smoldering, but the powers that be can't squeeze out what they want out of 9/11 anymore. Now they're moved on to their next phase. And that's where we're at. And we're still in illegal wars today. Families are losing their lives left and right, physically and mentally. People are killing themselves over these wars. They're illegal banker wars from 9/11, still going on today.
Right. But
It's
people are just not as
insane.
aware of them. It's just not as much in their face, and it doesn't have a direct impact on their everyday life. Like all of those who are dealing with depression and, rising levels of alcohol and addiction.
Yeah, the suicide rates for our military are through the roof. And those are illegal wars from 9/11.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's our people. And then millions of people, the thousands of people losing their lives in these wars as we speak. It's just, it's insane. But the parallels are there. And it's just, like I was saying, we're going to ride that wave with COVID and 9/11.
Well, it comes down to, it comes down to creating a connection, right? So if that's the connection that you can establish with someone, and you can use the COVID to have a dialogue about 9/11, then it's just like using anything else to have that dialogue. So, but I think Dorothy wanted to respond.
Wait, let me just add one more thing. With our little movement out here, one thing we do not do, if people don't agree with just sticking to 9/11, we don't kick them out of the group or our little circle, because we're adding to the division. Okay, so I get being a purist on it, but if you're too pure with it, it might not be very healthy.
Constructive, yeah.
Thank you, Dorothy. You're muted.
Just a couple things. One is that this whole thing, this Ukraine crisis, where we're being pushed into a stupid war with Russia over there. They're going to manufacture some kind of Russian false flag operation. So they are using our language now. And I guess I want to think about how we can turn that into an opportunity rather than, let it turn into a disaster. So I'm open to that. Also, couple things is I woke up a couple mornings ago and I was lying in bed and I suddenly thought, I'm living in the Matrix, like right now, living in the Matrix, not like the movie version, but this is the Matrix. Of course, it's been the Matrix since at least 9/11, but I didn't get it at a visceral level until just now. Also, I started watching Leah Remini's thing on Netflix, her series on Scientology. And oh my God, Scientology and the parallels with our government and with brainwashing and gaslighting people and not letting people leave and not letting people get information in from the outside and destroying relationships. There are so many parallels with Scientology. So I totally recommend that series just to help give a new way of thinking about this.
Thank you. I just want to say something triggered me there, thinking that in the 70s we had MK Ultra, CIA's program MK Ultra, and they said, "Oh no, we dismissed that program." If anybody thinks that CIA no longer progressed with MK Ultra, a psychology experiment on trauma-based,
And even
mind
Operation
control.
Mockingbird for that.
Yeah, it's just that they've definitely continued to go on with that, and that's fear. People respond to fear.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Ziola?
Hi, guys. Yeah, I was thinking as far as when the younger people are coming forward and complaining that they're losing their rights, a good way to interject and kind of remind them how this all kind of started. Well, not really started because they've been doing these false flags for many, many years. But you could say, and it kind of, the Patriot Act kind of set the stage in a way. And then they'll say, like, what do you mean? What's the Patriot Act and how, why did that happen? And that's a good way a good opener to introduce 9/11 truth to the younger generation and those that are concerned with COVID. That was all I had.
Thank you. Real quick, I just wanted to share my screen again. Some things that I do for 9/11 truth activism, more of this passive activism. I put up stickers. One sticker that I made, I guess I found out that Falling Man is one of the most memorable pictures of 9/11. So I used that. I put a QR code and it just goes to the Lawyers Committee's website. I just wanted something an image to grab somebody and then give them a direction to go. And then another one that I've made, you can see it up here in the top corner. Why is the U.S. government trying to block 9/11 grand jury? Same thing, it goes to the Lawyers Committee's website. Then I also have stickers for humor, where the Einstein 9/11 WTF squared. Just something that, let me unshare my screen now. Something to grab somebody in the moment. So these are just Avery labels you could get, 6 to a page. And then I can print them out on the local printer, or you can go to a sticker guy and have it done. That's one way to be able to get the message out to somebody in a quick and easy way, I believe.
Gene.
You're the master of memes.
Thank you.
You
And
really
memes.
are. And, I could not reproduce those memes myself and print them on stickers. I can. So how can we get those memes besides going to Facebook?
Well, Susan, thank you, Susan, for that. I realize over the years I've put out hundreds of 9/11 memes, my own design. If there's any meme that you would like to see on a sticker or something, let me know and I'll get it formatted and I'll send you the link to the sticker guy, because these stickers, like the let me find it here real quick. These ones, if it'll
love it.
They're 3 inches by 2 inches roughly, I think, or 2.5 by 2. And you can get 250 of these for $20.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. Unfortunately on this one I
Putting
don't.
it at the gas pump. That's awesome.
This one I don't. What I found is give somebody a QR code or a URL, somewhere to go. Like, okay, you've made your point, but now give them a place to go. And I didn't do it with this sticker, but
Well, now that I'm working for the Lawyers Committee, I definitely want one with a QR code for the Lawyers Committee.
So yeah, I got stacks and stacks of stickers. I know
Gene, send me the link, will you, for that Falling Man and the Lawyers Committee. I want to buy them, and I don't want to go through the hassle of trying to figure out with Avery labels. So
we'll do 10-4.
Yeah. You know about the website, right? Al, the stickerguide.com? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's if you not having interaction with people, wearing t-shirts, you know, putting bumper stickers on your car, things like that, you know, a very passive way, holding signs. But then for getting into interaction with folks, I mentioned that Richard Gage has found it in events when you're only given mere seconds to say something to somebody. Richard has found, did you know a third tower fell works for him. What Fran has expressed and Benny Wills has expressed, when they meet somebody, they'd like to start up a friendship, talk about something neutral, build their trust, and then maybe bring up the 9/11 topic.
Yeah, it's very important to find your common ground first.
Yep. Fran,
if you can.
Fran, and then Marty, and then Kale. And you're muted, Fran. You're muted.
Okay, if we want to get back to talking about activism, maybe one thing is people can do is bring up problems they've had when they've talked to people, and let us try to respond to those problems. And the other thing is, how do we communicate constructively with people if we happen to get into a decent conversation with someone? How do we communicate constructively so that we're not pushing people away, and instead we're drawing people in? So if we want to get back to it, those were just suggestions I had.
That's a good one, because, for instance, we used to come off the early 9/11 truth movement yelling at the street 9/11 was an inside job is offensive to a lot of people. So trying to find a softer way of stating something and not come off offensive. Yeah. Kale, and oh, I'm sorry, Marty first, and then Kale. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Gene. So yeah, just picking up on that, you know, what I found is that because these are, as Gene, you seem to like the thing, that these are around people's beliefs, and they're very firmly held beliefs, so that I found the best way to make progress is by asking questions rather than, like you say, yelling at people or yelling out. The facts don't really matter if they are not emotionally open to hearing the information. And so I have found really the best way for any topic, COVID or 9/11, but anything that where people are dug in their beliefs on something, is to ask questions. And of course, that's the, you know, the Socratic method. And I've even heard RFK Jr. when he's talking, you know, talk about that as well. But, you know, I looked up the Socratic method yesterday because I thought, oh, it's asking questions. But I thought, well, what, you know, what does it say? And I found this very interesting, that so you ask these repeated questions, but the purpose is to expose contradictions in the other person's, in their own thoughts and ideas. So what it does is it forces people to do their own critical thinking and reasoning, because you're just asking questions like, well, you know, what, oh, you haven't heard of Building 7. Yeah, and then you might throw in a little fact and then can ask another question. What is the reason you think that you haven't heard about that, or what is it? But it forces people to find holes in their own logic, in their own theories. And what's interesting, it creates this internal cognitive dissonance, but it's in them, which because of their own thinking, because of what they're saying, rather than us, you know, kind of pushing that onto them. And I've just found that works for, and again, I know you don't do, but for any of these topics, and like COVID, where they are dug in, people, oh, well, what about, you know, if you ask them almost anything, they have, I was talking to some guy, oh, well, the vaccines were blah, blah, blah. I said, oh, well, where'd you get that information? From the news. you know, I'm like, okay, well, what's the source behind? You just start asking and they run out of answers very quickly. And so I just really appreciated that definition that I thought of what asking questions does in terms of internally to our own thought process. And the one other thing I wanted to mention was picking up on what Kale had talked about before about fear. And we all know that fear is the driving motivator for all these. So for 9/11, and in the expert speak out, I talked about trauma because I've done work on trauma, that trauma actually falls on a stress trauma continuum. We all have stress every day in our lives. The differential definition of trauma is that it puts us in a situation where we feel threatened actually for our bodily integrity, like that we will be harmed or die. So to say I'm traumatized by the math test isn't really quite right if we use it really, and that we don't have control. So these are key aspects of the concept of trauma. So if you look at 9/11, so we all saw those buildings come down over and over and over. And what you just showed, Jean, with the falling man, I mean, that's someone who is going to die. And it's traumatic, and we can also experience trauma by just watching someone else, like that falling man. And I will say I have mixed feelings about that because it's so hard to look at that. Like it's like I'm not attracted to that. I want to kind of run away from that image because it engenders some trauma in myself. And the connection, and apologies, Sandra, about, but the thing about, I did want to say about COVID is that they took trauma to the level of instilling a fear of death in every person on the planet. And it's brilliant in the most evil way. It's absolutely brilliant. If you want to control everyone on the planet, you make them like I was like, okay, I'm going to die. We're all going to die, you know, from this, you know, and we can't see it and anyone can spread it. So therefore we don't have control of it. So it fits all that definition. And so I think that's just one choice I made personally was I'm not going to live in fear during this. I just can't. I cannot live. And that's just a personal choice that I made. And that's, you know, something we can each do. But anyway, just a couple of thoughts there that I wanted to put out.
Thank you. Before I go to you, oh, go ahead, Sandra.
Yeah, because me too, just my apologies to Kale, but I just quickly wanted to weigh in on the earlier what Marty said in terms of asking questions, which I think is the single best way, because nobody wants to be bashed over the head with information and especially insults. I don't know why people engage in insults. None of us got on board by being insulted, right? Yeah, Jean and I were talking about this a few days ago, and I was saying, my question now, if I'm dealing with a person who's clearly resistant, would be to ask them, what do you consider to be your own greatest obstacle in even trying to consider that we may have been lied to? And let them tell me what it is that's stopping them from even, and if they can name it, and if they said something like, you know, I just can't go there, or I would have to change something, or, but the important thing would be for them to name it, not for me to name it for them. Nobody wants to be spoon-fed the answer, right? I mean, or even if they did, it wouldn't carry the same weight as if they came upon it themselves. So I think that's kind of the question I'm going to go with. If in the face of no reaction at all, is just to see if that'll do it.
That's good too. Thank you both for that. Real quick, Kale, sorry, I also want to say something. Two things that Marty said. One, Socratic method, that reminded me of the Columbo technique. If anybody knows Columbo, basically just get them talking and draw them into the conversation. That's awesome. For instance, he says, "That's a nice clock. You know, I used to have a car exactly the same color as this Chevy. It was. Hey, I've got a red Chevy. Have you? Well, you know, mine was a pretty good one." He just gets them talk, get them pulled into the conversation, and I thought that was great. And then two, kind of like what everyone's talking about is basically Stockholm syndrome, where we just the trauma and the people will respond to that, and that reminded me of Stalin's plucked chicken story. If no one's aware of the story, I just want to read this paragraph because it's pretty profound. The story goes that Joseph Stalin in the late days of the communist regime called his commanders together for a discussion. "I understand you're wondering how I govern people so that every last one of them thinks of me as a living God," he said. He then called for someone to bring him a live chicken. The chicken was found. Stalin proceeded to tear out its feathers while it squawked and screeched. He put it down on the ground with instruction to his commanders to watch. The chicken could have run off anywhere, but it was too tired, too hurt, and could do nothing but sit at Stalin's feet. Stalin then reached in his pocket for more wheat and held it out to the chicken. That chicken, even though it had just been tortured by this monster of a human, cocked its head to the side and took the food. Stalin then offered more and moved about the room. The chicken followed, hoping for more food. He then told his pupils, "Even though I have done the most terrible acts on this creature, it still follows me as if I had given a small meaningless treat every now and then. This is how to govern people."
Wow. Wow.
And yeah, sorry, bad segue, but hey, Kale, you're up.
Yeah, one of the keys that I found over the years was, you know, when someone's engaging me, "Well, what does your shirt mean?" And, you know, "Oh yeah," you know, just scoffing and, you know, kind of mocking. Because, you know what, don't focus on me. I'm just the messenger, and I'm an advocate in trying to get this reinvestigated. And then I'll present the information to the experts, engineers, architects, pilots, and they go, "Oh yeah, well, who?" And then I show them there's over 3,000 of them. Architects and engineers is a good place to go. Richard Gage, now we can kind of branch off, and Richard is doing his Unleashed. I take the focus off of me and put it on the experts, because that's what they want, right? If they're watching the news or they think the government or politicians are thinking their experts are the ones teaching them the truth, right? But if I take the focus off of me and put it on actual experts like engineers, architects, demolition experts, metal gargists, you know, you name it, they're out there, and I give them the information. And of course, I got to learn it myself if they're going to ask, okay, well, what are they saying? And World Trade Center 7 is an excellent thing to learn, so you can reiterate it and then give names to an expert or a professional in that field that they can't say it's some crazy conspiracy theorist in mama's basement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so referring to the experts has always been a key for us, and we've gained more than lost with that one.
Thank
You
you.
bring the horse to water, you're halfway there.
Yeah, right.
Chuck, and we've been going on an hour and a half too. I don't know, you ladies, how much time I thank you so much for the time you've given us. But I'll try to wrap this up here soon.
I have an ethical question after, so I just want to ask.
Oh, where'd Chuck go? Oh, there you go.
Am I still here?
Yep, go ahead, Chuck.
I guess I like the idea of asking people, where were you? When were you? You know, where were you when the 9/11 event happened? And I do like the appeal of relying on the experts. David Ray Griffin is such a noble man of integrity, honorable man, and it's almost, you know, he's impeccable credentials. So I find him a powerful reference to make, because, you know, what would he have? Why would he be making this up? Why would he be telling us this story that's false? Why would he be telling a false narrative? This is an individual who's dedicated his life to theology and the study of religion and so on. So that's an appeal. But I guess I'm also noticing within myself, I don't yell at people, but I did share on this discussion one when I was on last, and I told the story of my youngest sister. We're the family. This is not too long ago, sitting around the table, and I'm sharing about my view on 9/11 and not yelling at them and not necessarily asking them what they think about it, because a lot of them don't want to think about it and don't really like me asking about it. And the metaphor was, why do you pick at the scab? And we talked about this. Well, there's a scab because the wound hasn't healed around this. But I find for myself that I'm at a point now where if I'm going to ask someone to think about 9/11, and which is to look into that abyss of the unspeakable that James Douglas, for the title of his book from Thomas Merton, I need to be able to say, this is where we have to go. And we can't just look and say, look at that festering wound. I feel like it's almost wrong to take someone there if there isn't some kind of a coherent plan around what do you do with this? What do you do with this information? So that's why I'm interested in the idea of liberation coalition, so that when I'm inclined to say the country was stolen. Has that occurred to you that the country has been stolen in these events, and it's happening again today, and now we're getting a mandate? I can't just be in a silo, and that's my personal struggle in this movement, to speak to these things. But those are my thoughts. I'm going to stop right there.
Thank you. We'll go to Ray and then give the Marty and Fran, I guess we lost Dorothy, give them a chance to final response, and then we'll wrap this up. Because
well, you don't want them to respond right away to Chuck?
Yeah, if you have something you guys have anything to say back to Chuck's response?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead, Al.
I get back to the best tool we have is, again, the lawyers committee. And if you're approaching somebody, to say, did you know that there were, I don't know how many lawyers, 90 lawyers are trying to present to a grand jury in the Second District Court of New York, 60 exhibits that 9/11 was a false flag event. And when you hit them with lawyers and courts, they go, oh, it's quite a surprise. And it lends street creds to anything we're talking about. And that's, I think, a big deal for anybody trying to approach somebody. And another point would be the professional people that Fran probably comes in contact with, and social situations. How do you deal with professionals who are experts in their field, and how do they respond to her? It depends on how educated the person is that you're talking to, and the level of resistance you come across. I find professionals are set on, they're much more skeptical of the 9/11 story than somebody on the street that you happen to come across. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you, Al. Anything to say there, or we'll go to Ray and then allow Fran and Marty any final comments. Go ahead, Ray.
Okay, I just looked up what cognitive dissonance, the term cognitive dissonance is used to describe the mental discomfort that results from holding two conflicting beliefs. That's what I read, and I think there's a lot that people think that they know the whole truth, if it's about 9/11 or if it's about COVID or whatever. And I think that we all have a cognitive dissonance because we do not know the whole truth. So you have a piece that knows, and a piece that does not know everything about the subject. So we are a truth movement, and I think as being a truth movement, the truth which we say and which we claim to know has to have basis, but we also have to judge ourselves if we really know what we know, because there's a lot of things like calling it an inside job. They're kind of meaningless in the sense of just naming it an inside job. It's more understanding what you're saying than using one term or another. And I realize that also in the movement, that people tend to know it was this or it was that, and they're stuck in that paradigm of thinking. They're not open to question their own thought. And I think that's really dangerous for us to move forward in a sense of predicting to know what is the truth about 9/11, because I did not come across one person who can tell me from A to Z what happened on that day. And it's really a thing that it has to be a consistent thing, but nobody knows it. We know fragments, and tying it into COVID, it's the same thing. It's not knowing anything about COVID, and I see a lot of people going against COVID, what it is, and having sort of two beliefs or one belief, but promoting that belief even out of ignorance. There's no real thought behind it than that it was also a false flag or a thing. We have to really define and choose the words which we speak, that we really know what we're speaking about.
Is that the saying, know what you know and why you know it comes in to play?
Yeah, it's also the getting into the nitty-gritty, and I know it's not the place here, and I would not do it here, but it's thinking about what you're saying yourself. Can you prove it for yourself, what you are saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we kind of think more about the words we choose before we say them, that we grow. We grow as a humanity, and it's like calling 9/11 only the destruction of the Twin Towers or the 3 buildings. It's much more than that, and we did not grasp a fraction of it.
But you understand that nobody knows everything there is to know about 9/11.
That's what I'm
right?
getting at. That's what I'm getting at.
Right.
We do not know. We do not know.
So we can only go ahead with whatever we do know for sure, and that may not be the same thing for everyone.
Yeah, but it's fear. It's fear, not fearing. And what are you fearing? Your own ignorance? Is that what we are fearing? Are we not? It's. What do we know about COVID? What do we know about 9/11?
Okay, so do you have a question? Do you have a question with that?
No,
for Fran or Marty.
Yeah, I think that the people I followed from 9/11 who are now doing COVID are falling into the same trap that they set up for themselves, is that they know what they're talking about. It's like wait a moment.
I hear
first
what
moment you're a doctor, and now or you are an architect, and now you're a doctor. Sorry, it doesn't. Or you have studied it for years, and then I can give you a chance. But it's not like going from one subject to another subject, and then claiming to know everything about the following subject. It doesn't.
I think Ray just wants to be assured that everyone knows what they're talking about, because a lot of people talk about 9/11, but then they haven't, as he said, they haven't even read the NIST report. So it's just, that's something.
I go and read the NIST report.
But that is outside of the conversation where we're going here. We just kind of want to get into the psychology of the activism. I thank you for the comment, though.
Okay,
Susan, I'll go with you, but I kind of want to. They've been more than gracious with their time, so if you can keep it short.
I just wanted to respond to Ray. that he's right. We don't know everything. We don't know how they did it. We don't know exactly how they did it. We have inklings, we have clues. But one thing we do know for sure, whatever happened on 9/11 or COVID or what have you, the deep state is taking an opportunity to control the masses. And that much is obvious.
Mhm. Thank you. Fran and Marty, any final words for us? We've been all over the place, but I think you understand what we were trying to get accomplished here.
Well, sure. I have a couple of thoughts. Just one in response to either Ray or there's a conversation in the chat about the term inside job and cover-ups better. Just one thing I found, again, in talking to people, okay, we talked about kind of asking questions. Then if you have a chance to present something, I tend to present a fact. The words cover up and inside job are triggering words and they aren't factual, and you will get a negative reaction versus, oh, building 7. Well, this was this building. It fell in 6.5 seconds. And, just simple facts. And we have all that, tons of wonderful information to share with people. And just, I guess, finally, I would say that one thing in talking to people, I think it's so important to think about our activism in the context of relationship. So one thing is our personal power. So I feel I have some personal power, and that people who know me feel I'm, have something to say, or I'm not a stupid person, hopefully they think I'm a smart person, stable, whatever. Those are pieces of personal power that it's harder to discount me as a person. If I say something, they don't like it. One approach to cognitive dissonance is to discount the, oh, that nutcase. Well, that's harder to do if we're talking to people in a relationship where we know that they know us and have a good opinion of us. So it's something in terms of choosing, who we're speaking to and how. And then the other thing around relationship and is that any kind of, I used to teach a lot of conflict resolution, and we tend to think, okay, if we're in a conflict, which might be talking to someone, who are we talking to and what is our purpose in this conversation? So, and that can vary depending. So street activism tends to be with strangers. Okay, that is not a risk for me. So if I piss off that person, they don't like me, okay. But if it's my sister, that's very different. And we can make different, we tend to think, be honest, put the stuff out there. And I would say no, that there are different choices in how we approach our activism. And it's one of the worst nights of my life was talking about 9/11 with my family, because it's not worth it. So the choice of actually avoiding conflict is a good choice. If I hear a gunshot or I hear a fight, I might run away. I think that's a smart choice. If it's my family, I may not choose to talk about the issues that are very important to me, like 9/11 or COVID, because I love them. And my relationship is more important than that they get 9/11 or they, and so versus say a friend or versus a stranger. So all I'm saying is I think thinking about the context of relationship in how we approach our activism is just something I'd advocate for.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Fran?
Yeah, I'll say a few words, see what happens, comes out of my mouth again here. First of all, there are so many things I loved that were spoken here. I love the whole idea of asking questions. And I'm glad to be reminded of that.
Yes.
It's so important. And I loved what Sandra Jelmy said about asking the question about what is your block to this, and I've done that before too. I was talking to someone and like, I've sensed you have a block to getting this information. What do you think it is? And that person answered me so honestly. It was amazing. Let's see, what else did I jot down here? Oh, I think that's focusing on process. And I found that that always works. Instead of focusing on the topic, on the facts of what's going on, because people can argue facts back and forth till the cows come home. But if I focus on the process, it's like, listen, I notice every time we talk about this subject, you start getting riled up and angry. Can you tell me what that's about? And so focusing on the process, I found, is very, very constructive. I think not making, as much as possible, not making you statements, but making I statements, not saying you get angry, but say, I notice that when we're doing this, you seem to get angry, and making I statements, focusing on process. And then I love the Columbo technique. I'm going to look that up. Relationship. I try to remember that everyone I talk to might someday be my neighbor, and whoever it is, I want to talk to them so that I'm not embarrassed how I talk to them, so that we could still be neighbors and we could still have a relationship. So I try to treat everyone as though they're part of my community. And authenticity. I think that maybe what Ray was talking about a little bit was being authentic. I don't know everything about this, but what I do know is that the only way buildings have come down at free fall is with controlled demolition. And this is one thing I do know about this. What do you think about that? And so, but being authentic, I think, is really important too. And I'm still learning. I think everything we're doing in life, all of our activism, is helping us grow. It's certainly helping me grow. I learn all the time. I try to become a different person, and I learn. And I think a lot of that is what this is all about, is our own personal growth, really, So there you go. That's all I can think of to say.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Kale, I just saw your hand up now. I don't know if you have something real quick to say.
Yeah, real quick. Just to go back to Marty, speaking from a parent's point of view through this with parents, if you want to say being awake versus family that decides to, the cognitive, whatever.
Yeah.
Dissonance. Thank you. Dissonance. It's very difficult to make that decision with family and close friends to keep them close in the circle, because it's dangerous in a way, because then it makes mom and dad look like, and who they talk to about 9/11 or whatever, like crazy, or your father or your mother, and then they can take on that trait or that habit of not looking into it as they grow. Our children are 8 and 7. So they're in that key area of absorbing all this information as we're going, especially their peers and their friends that have parents that are not even, that are just going with the flow, the media, and shutting it all down, shutting it out. So turning away from family or friends is kind of important sometimes in this situation, where you just can't shut down and, okay, if you want to believe that, well, then go ahead. That's going to be damaging to my child and their future and their freedoms and their researching, or however you want to word it, however they learn growing up. We don't want them to be indoctrinated. We don't want them to fall into the cycle. And that's what's dangerous being a parent in this waking up, or trying to teach them, like how you're saying, we don't know the truth from A to Z. We don't, and we don't come off that way, but we know there's something wrong. We know there's something so wrong. It's a matter of life and death and their future and their freedoms.
Mhm.
So we don't want people around that are going to, how should I say, they're going to threaten our children from being able to have an open mind or understand that mommy and daddy are actually protecting them and the people around them. Like, we invite Jean and Sandra and you guys into our life. Are they protecting us, or is Auntie right and you guys are just crazy?
And we'll just keep talking
Are
to
these
your
people
kids, Gil.
just crazy?
Just
You
keep
know?
on talking to them and let them know what's out there. Let them know what to expect and give them the tools.
And we do, and that's what I'm saying with Marty, with family, and they don't want to engage. Well, sometimes we have to just keep them farther away. It's different than a stranger. A stranger doesn't have any kind of influence over my child, but a family member or a close friend does. Just like school, public school, and the government being involved with their education does have a hand in their growth. So sometimes we have to push away, and it's sad, it's hard, but
Very sad. It's
yeah,
very
it's
sad.
as a parent.
Yeah, I have grandchildren. I have grandchildren I can't see because my
Right,
daughter and
yeah.
her husband won't let me because of my opinions.
Right.
It's absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's tough, and we really don't hear a parent's point of view in all of this as well. We hear our feelings, but as a parent, it's hard,
Yeah.
Anyway,
Gail,
that's what I'm saying with Marty.
I would just say that is such a very moving point, and you're right. And I think what I was saying about relationship is not, oh, you should never, you should always avoid, say, with family, or my point is that you're making a conscious decision of what you're going to do, whether you're going. So there are some things, like, because you can get into it's a win-lose and the win-win. So I may choose to avoid because I decide that relationship's more important. You may choose to engage or avoid in a different way because of what you just said, with what's important for your children to learn. And there are certain things where you're going to choose to engage, and you will, because that is your children are the most important, and you're going to fight for what they are exposed to and what they believe in. And it has very serious consequences in our relationships. Like Susan just said, horrible. We've all had these through our work in 9/11. So it's just more a matter of being conscious about what our choices are, was kind of my point there. Yeah.
One scary thing to add to this, as things progress and the government tightens more of a grip on us, they're going to turn people into not just domestic terrorists or extremists for thinking out of the box, because we see all the censorship happening, and then that kind of talk is going around, people like us being domestic terrorists or extremists for even talking about 9/11. There was a news report not that long ago warning, I think it was Department of Homeland Security, saying people talking about 9/11, they're extremist, domestic terrorists.
Right.
Anyway, to get to my point, as a parent in this, back in Nazi Germany, people had to be turned in by their neighbors, and or even family or friends were turning on each other. And now, a parent can be turned into CPS, or even teaching their children the wrong narratives, So I guess from a parent's point of view, as things progress and it gets tighter, now we're worried, is family or a neighbor or this gonna say, oh, these people are teaching their children this, like we're almost like a little terrorist cell. There's so much to think about in this this fight from a parent's point of view,
Absolutely.
and dealing with family and friends versus
That'd be
strangers
an
on the
excellent
street.
topic, for one of our calls, is how to deal with family. I would really love to concentrate that in depth on a separate call sometime.
Okay. Fran?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know what's going on.
Can't resist chiming in here. I think maybe what we're seeing here is a parent not wanting their children to be affected by what other people think, and those people would have an influence on the children. And then we see a grandmother who can't see her grandkids because of fear of what the parents think. And maybe Marty's thought about making this a conscious thing, how wonderful that would be. I know I'm in the place where some of my children, in fact, most of them, didn't want me to see my grandkids, and they never talked about it, but I knew what it was about. They didn't want their kids to hear anything about my crazy views, my crazy views about 9/11, they were afraid. So there's fear there. There's fear from the parents that their children might be affected by me if I talked about 9/11. And maybe then their children would talk, I'm just guessing, maybe their children would talk about 9/11 in a way that wasn't part of the consensus reality, and then their children would be rejected at school. What are those fears, And so it's like turning the fear around in the case of my kids. So I think Marty's point of making this conscious, wouldn't it be wonderful if the parents, in my case, I'm talking about, at least, or any case really, could just get together independently, alone with the grandparents, with their parents, and say, look, we're afraid of our kids hearing your views of life, and just talk about their fears, talk about the fears, and we don't want them to hear these views, and here's why we don't want them to hear about it. Just make it conscious. And then in my case, I could say, okay, I have no plans of bringing that up anyway. So you can just let go of your fear, And so, I'm just talking maybe Marty's point about making this a conscious interaction would solve a lot of the problems, just my 2 cents worth at this point in time.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, ladies, for your time. Please let Dorothy know as well. Thank you. This is a lot to take away from here, and everyone have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.
No, thank you. Honestly, it's just been really an honor to have you on and to have a discussion about, many of the forces that drive all of this behind the scenes. We're often focused about the front of the scenes, and action and how to connect and all of that stuff, but all of what we're talking about underlies all of that and connects it all. So it's really critical to be aware of it, and you gave us a lot to think about. Thank you for that.
No, thank you for the invitation. It's just been
Anytime.
really wonderful to meet all of you.
Yeah. Anytime, if you want to just hop in on board, we're always here 5 to 7, and anytime.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks so much.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good week.
Good night.
Take care.
Night.
Hello.
Oh, and Richard joins. Richard, we were just ending. That's so funny. If he's there.
How did that happen?
It was off on the Eastern Standard Time. Let me try to unmute him real quick. Gotta at least say hi to Richard.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you guys. That's
We were
terrible.
just hanging up, Jared.
I wrote down 4 o'clock and or what did I do? I don't know what I did, but I screwed up. It was 2 hours ago, right?
Yes, it was. We were just hanging up and you hopped on.
That's so funny.
And I missed Fran and Marty and Bob Griffin.
Dorothy was here. Robert wasn't able to make it.
Oh.
Fran and Marty are still here.
Hello,
We're all
you
on our way
guys.
out.
Hi,
Hey,
Richard.
Richard.
Great to see you. Sorry I missed you.
Well,
You missed so
Yeah.
much wisdom, Richard. What did you miss out?
Who do we got coming up for your next interview, Richard?
Well, let me see. It's Tuesday.
Yep.
And we had what's his name?
We had Massimo Mizuko.
Yeah, that's what's his name. On Tuesday, we've got Paul Craig Roberts.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
Oh,
And on Thursday, we got Scott Bennett.
Excellent.
And then we have Matt Van Slyke of the Truth Booth creation fame
Mhm.
on the 8th, and Christopher Joya on the 10th,
Nice.
Dave Von Kleist on the 17th, and Ray McGinnis, author, on the 24th. It's filling up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
Richard, have you thought
everybody's-
about Ray McGovern?
No, that's a great idea.
Because he does some really good articles, I'll tell you.
Hi, Al.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
And then we're really looking forward to the March 19th
Mhm.
discussion, Pentagon discussions coming up. That's going to be really interesting. So
Wow.
we're
I'm
looking
glad
forward.
that you're excited about it, because I've got I want to get a couple of hundred people there. You think that'll be possible?
Mm-hmm. Whenever
Great.
you start to get ready to let that be known and publicize it, yeah, I'll be publicizing it everywhere. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's going to be all over it.
Very cool. Well, I'll be pushing hard starting in a couple of days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining, and I think we're all going to sign off now.
Yeah.
All right, my friends. Take
Loving
care.
your
Good to see you
interviews,
guys.
Richard.
Next
Love your
time,
interviews.
Richard.
Bye.
care.
I'll be on time next time. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.